Welcome to the Late Morning Show. We just finished Creative Mornings April, theme of inclusive, with Marta Alcala-Williams. Just got off the stage. How do you feel?
Ooh, I feel great. Now that I am done.
It always feels good in the rear view, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does.
So what was the process like for just preparing for this talk about the theme of inclusive, from when you first learned about this opportunity to today? What was that process like?
Well, so when I first heard about it, the first thing that came to my mind is like, oh, inclusive and right? Because of the issues that I have around the word, and that if it's used correctly, right, to me, then it's relationships, not inclusive. And I hope, right, that I was able to convey that message, because I think that it'll start removing the having to use the word that at some point had to be exclusive, and therefore we had to bring in the inclusive. So I looked at a couple of little YouTube videos and everything, and then I was like, no, that's not what I'm feeling. I'm feeling that it's more about that relationship piece, and that when you have the relationship, then all the pieces just fall in, right? And the perfect proof is that if not, we wouldn't have a young mom that's 24 that just had a baby, and we are having a baby shower with 70-plus-year-old women, and that are white and black, and so to me it's more about that. Well, how do we say it? And so that's why I wanted to make it a question instead, because I wanted folks to sit with it for a minute. And it was beautiful, because when I asked, how many of you love the word inclusive, only one person raised their hand. It was a little bit like this. And it was very interesting, right? Because it's like, oh man, that's a trick question, right? And it was that, really, if you sit with it for just a second, you know that it had to be created, right, to mean whatever.
Right.
So, and then of course connecting with you and Mike and Tim, and talking through like the things and my ideas and how I wanted to put it together. And then when I just heard so much confirmation and positive stuff, I was like, okay, this is the right way to go.
Yeah.
And throwing in the little Spanish part was just a little like, let's have some fun with it and make people nervous for a second.
Just for a second.
Not too long.
Is it? And your talk was amazing. And for those of you watching the Late Morning Show, this is to tide you over until we get the video online in a week or so. But we're going to put the Late Morning Show up on social media really soon. So you'll get a little taste of Marta before the video goes wide. But I loved how you sort of explored an alternative ways of thinking about the word inclusive. And you talked about family, you talked about home. I know that you work a lot with kids, and in your role at Asheville City Schools. And I think that idea of making kids feel at home and welcome in every space that they inhabit and feeling like leaders is a really powerful lesson to impart. So can you talk about your work with kids and what you were talking about today in terms of building more communities that feel like home and feel of belonging?
Absolutely. So Marvelous Math Club is probably the biggest thing that I've done with kids, because my role is parent and family and community. And I'm like, well, community are the kids. And since I moved into Hall Fletcher, my office moved into Hall Fletcher, many of the kids that attend Marvelous Math Club are at Hall Fletcher. And so I get to see them on a regular basis, and we have lots of conversations about changing the narrative, like Brian Stevenson said last night. And so it's like, see yourself as that leader. And when you walk in the building, exhibit leadership at all times, so that then the grown-ups in your world are having to be like, what happened, right? And also me talking to some of the teachers and saying like, did you know that Rachel is a leader at Marvelous Math Club? And then they could be like, oh, well, she's not in my class. And I was like, oh, probably because she didn't know that you know that she's a leader. But I bet you if you tell her that you know that she's a leader, you'll see a difference, right? And so it's just kind of putting a little bit of that softness and magic and beauty of, you are amazing, you do belong, you are so smart, you're a genius, and I just can't wait to tap into that, to just watch it just pour out from you, right? And I think I know that we create a place that feels like home because at Marvelous Math Club, it's in the community, the leaders reside, yet there are 5 different elementary schools. So the kids don't see each other at school, right? And the leaders have said, Ms. Marta, now that we come to Marvelous Math Club, even though we live in the same community, we didn't play together and we weren't friends, but now we're all family, right? And they really see us, the math champions, as family too. So it's not like a power dynamic or anything. And it's beautiful. I actually has a cute story because we talk about language a lot. And one day one of the students came into my office and I was dealing with something with DSS. And I was on the phone. I said, damn it. And he stayed there and goes, Miss Marta, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. But then I just kept going with my conversation. And when we got to Marvelous Math Club that afternoon, they usually tell me like really juicy stories about this is happening in my community, or this happened with my mom or with my dad or something. And he says to me, Miss Marta, when you have a minute, we need to tell you something. Can we talk? And I was like, yes, but I was excited that I think they're going to tell me a juicy story, right? And so, no, like in the computer room, like we have to close the door. So I was like, oh man, this is a really juicy story, right? So all 3 of them come and they lock the door. And so the 2 other leaders are sitting in back, and the one that's going to address it says, so Miss Marta, we are here to talk to you about giving you some strategies for language because you said a bad word.
Amazing.
So, normally we would be kind of like, yeah, well, what were you doing in my office to begin with or whatever, but I was like, you're right.
Right.
You're absolutely right. So that just shows me, right, that if we are really talking about what this all feels like, then it's reciprocity, right? All of a sudden I can't then become the power house and be like, it's just like, yeah, you're right. And accepting, so that it just makes it, we all make mistakes and we all are learning and we're all growing together. And that a 3rd grader got to call me on it.
Right. That's amazing.
So, and when you get to visit my office, you saw they came in and just like eye contact, and I'm a leader, and just beautiful stuff.
Yes, every kid deserves that, to know that and feel that about themselves, and so that was has been a beautiful thing to witness.
And changing the narrative from having to go to special special math and special writing, to just saying, don't believe that. You have so much inside of you and so much genius. Just don't be shy with it. Just share it. And then now you're making the AB honor roll or the A honor roll. I believe that it's about changing my narrative.
Yeah.
So I love. It's one of my favorite things.
You're so good at what you do. It's so clear, and your kids love you. I love getting to see that.
Thank you. I'm glad you witnessed it.
Well, we had a question from the audience, from the community, that we wanted to ask you. So the question is, can pride in any heritage, white or color, become a roadblock for building the real relationships you discuss? So talk about pride.
Yes, so just the word pride in itself is yes, it does become a blocker, because as I was expressing earlier, you have to be willing to unlayer. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to make mistakes. And that's part of building those relationships that are really, really powerful in the long run. But when you're building it, it's not easy, right? We come from different places. We have different values. We have different ideas. We have different cultures. And if I'm really interested in you, then I want to learn all about you. And then the things that feel not so beautiful about you, that cause me to feel triggered or cause me to feel not so beautiful, that we can have a conversation and say, well, when I hear you saying that, this is how it lands for me. Could you tell me a little bit more about why it's so important for you? And maybe together we can unlayer it, and you could say, well, this is just part of my whatever. But once you hear me saying how it lands for me, I'm hoping that then you would be like, oh, I never even thought about it that way. And that is how we've developed the relationships to the level that we have. That you have to be willing to say it and watch people say, interesting, or, or like, whoa, I'm going to push back on that. That did not land okay with my body. Tell me a little bit more. So yeah, absolutely, pride will get in the way of any relationship, regardless of race. And if you're the white person trying to build a relationship with a person of color. Like people came up and asked me at the end, well, how do we do the thing about not putting just the black person or the queer person on the brochure or whatever? It's like, that person has to be part of the decision making. You have to share the power. Once we're in agreement that we're building this together, then it is a relationship. And then you lose the pride, you lose the power, and I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, last question. We always like to ask this one, what is your favorite thing about Asheville, your favorite spot, your favorite place to be in our community?
So I have a couple. So one of my favorite spots on Sundays is to go to Sunny Point because I love me some maple bacon and mimosas.
A good one.
Yet throughout the week, I have to say that where I do the most growth is on Mondays at Marvelous Math Club and Wednesdays at Mother Read, because we really just get to do things that aren't in your regular daily activities, right? It's kind of like we look forward to that day. And on Wednesdays, we're just kind of like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen today. Or I wonder, if we're going to get through everything. Because the idea is that we're going to talk about something not so good and then something beautiful that happened. And then later on, maybe read a book. And sometimes it just depends, If someone has beautiful things to share, we go around with that. And if it's a difficult situation, then we process and we stay on it until we get some resolution of crying and hugging and all of that. So a lot of my growing at 52 years of age happens in those two places.
It's amazing. So it's almost not even the spot, it's the community.
It's the
home.
community, yeah.
That's amazing.
It really is.
Well, thank you again so much, Marta, for being part of the creative community and our Asheville community. It's amazing, and we'll see you next month.
All right, thank you.